Am I introducing again?
I guess I should since you don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense.
Hey guys, it's Stephen Joe and Ribs Flavel
And Caitlin at Mofish McDonald.
and Caitlin. We are talking about replayability today, and I'm gonna break replayability apart into three types of replayability. We'll say there's a fourth, not replayable. Let's just get that out of the way. Some games are not replayable. Lame. Sad. Um, I'm going to talk about replayability that comes from learning the game, replayability that comes from the actual mechanics of the game being replayable, and replayability that comes from metagame external learning sort of stuff today. Does that sound interesting?
Yeah, sounds
Okay.
very interesting.
Caitlin has no idea what I'm about to say, and I'm going to try to explain it to her in a way that she understands, and that will prove to me that I've done a good job of it.
I am the blank slate for you to fill.
All right. So, I'm going to start with learning replayability. Learning replayability means that as you play a game, you don't know the mechanics, and you're learning them as you go along, and that's enjoyable. And the problem with a game that's entirely based on learning replayability is that once you've learned everything, there isn't really a game anymore because your enjoyment was coming from learning how to do stuff. So it would be like solving Rubik's Cubes if there were absolutely no enjoyment to solving a Rubik's Cube once you knew how to solve it. For example, it would be like learning to juggle if the act of juggling wasn't actually enjoyable once you could do it. You were just like, it was fun to learn how. So I think a really good example of a game which is based entirely on learning replayability is a choose your own adventure book.
Ah, yes.
Because once you've beat a choose your own adventure book one time, like you read the story, you know the path through it that lets you win. There just isn't really anything left to do in particular, right?
Yeah, and well, there usually are like multiple endings though sometimes, but once you read all the endings,
Yeah. You
yeah,
could go find the other endings, but once you found all the other endings, unless you want to reread the book, it's not a game anymore at
yeah,
that point.
yeah.
You must be enjoying just like reading the story or something because you already know everything that's going to happen.
Which I haven't found a choose your own adventure book that I would reread the story of. So,
Well, maybe you're looking at the wrong choose your own adventure
oh,
books.
okay.
There are choose your own adventure books which are like more complex and have RNG
Yeah.
elements and have role playing and character building and stuff. There's a series of books called Fabled Lands, which has like 6 choose your own adventure books which tie together. You can travel between. She's looking at me like I'm a nerd. That's why she likes me though. Um, so anyway, that's learning replayability, and let's just get all of them out of the way.
Okay.
So next, let's talk about metagame replayability, which is sort of similar to learning replayability, but it's sort of the other wrong side of replayable. So metagame replayability means that a game gets like played in tournament settings and against tough competition or something, and you want to be able to beat them, and so you keep trying to get better and better at the game, and you stop actually playing the game. Now all of a sudden you're like training for the game, and you're buying third-party programs to help
Hmm.
you analyze the game, and you're hiring coaches, and you're joining teams to learn the game. And there's a huge amount of potential there to make you really, really invested in the game. But you're not actually getting that out of the game. You're getting that out of the metagame surrounding the
Yeah.
game.
Okay.
So I think that chess in its current form, I really love chess and I think it has good replayability just in and of itself. But you can also see that the people who are the best at chess are very into the metagame replayability aspect of it. And they're doing stuff which doesn't really qualify as playing chess anymore in order to get enjoyment out of this thing which is chess. So they might be studying openings and memorizing tons and tons of moves and responses and understanding why they're good, and they're not actually sitting at a chessboard playing the game. They're doing this in analysis programs or they're reading books about it or stuff like that. So that's like a different sort of you wouldn't call that chess being replayable. You'd call that the like culture of chess being something you can get involved in and sink into and stay there. You wouldn't get that with just a chessboard and another person. You need all this other stuff going on in order to approach it. So that's metagame replayability. And then the last thing, which I think is the best sort of replayability, is mechanical replayability. Like the game is actually fun to play mechanically, and so you finish a game and you want to play again. And so when I was talking about like juggling or Rubik's Cube, those actually have mechanical replayability because it's fun to do and you just want to keep doing it. And so you come back and do it more. Um, I think League of Legends is an excellent example of a game which has excellent mechanical replayability. You end a game and you've probably learned a little bit just from playing. You can get into metagame replayability. With League of Legends, you can go to external sites and analyze stuff and watch your replays and stuff, but generally, I think people interact with it by just playing lots of games. And every game, you learn a little bit and you're hanging out with your friends and you're playing an engaging game with like adrenaline spikes and stuff, and it's fun. It's cool. Another one that I want to give in is as a like sort of smaller sort of game example of mechanical replayability is Settlers of Catan, which I don't actually like very much as a game personally. I think that there's way too much RNG in that game, not enough strategy, and a lot of the strategy is what I would call learning replayability. Like you can play the first 4 or 5 times and not know like how important is it to have the longest road? Is it good to have sheep or wood or bricks? Which one's good? But you get that pretty quickly. And the thing that carries the game and makes it continue to be replayable is the fact that you're rolling dice and hanging out with your friends, and that causes every game to be different. And for people who enjoy that, that's great. I don't really love Settlers, but it's a very, very successful board game for a reason, and I think that it has very good mechanical replayability, and that's a large part of it. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Sounding good so far? Okay, so something that I'm really interested in Long War II is replayability. I want this game to be something I can play 2 years from now and still be enjoying. And I think that Long War II has done a decent job of replayability. I have like probably coming up to 1,500 hours of Long War II time logged, and I'm still enjoying the game. So I cannot look at you right now in the webcam. I cannot look at you right now and honestly say that this game is not replayable. It seems to be extremely replayable. However, I'm going to put my analytical cap on, and I want to look for spots where Long War II sort of falls a little bit short in terms of replayability and think about how they could be improved. And I also want to look at the things which are really, really good in Long War II's replayability and just like touch on those and acknowledge them because they're awesome. And also, it's useful to acknowledge them because that helps me and other people maybe think about how the things which aren't so great yet could be tweaked into place where they fit in with the awesome stuff. You just got so like professional looking.
Well, I felt like I was like sitting behind you, just nodding. So now I'm like in a interactive position where I'm obviously the audience.
Okay, very good, excellent. Well, I'm interested in your opinion first. What do you think about replayability in Long War II?
Uh I think it does probably have replayability. I obviously didn't enjoy it as much to replay it. Like I would have stayed with it if it had been as enjoyable to replay it. Obviously, I was in the tweaking stage though, so stuff still needed to get adjusted.
Right.
But it was definitely hard as a beginning player, somewhat rookie player, to be playing Gatecrasher over and over and over again because stuff wasn't working.
Yeah.
So that can be hard. Like it can be hard to be replayable. Like the beginning could be hard to be replayable, or hard, more not as interesting to replay versus getting all the way through a campaign and replaying.
Yeah, because Caitlin did a lot of rookie testing while like many builds were coming out every week or something, and she didn't have a ton of time. So she was playing a lot of
Yeah.
Gate Crashers to
Well,
start a new
yeah.
campaign because everything had changed and there
And
was
I
no point
also, when I
in
started
continuing.
testing the infiltration time, the base infiltration time for rookie was still at what it is for legend. And I like
Okay.
couldn't get, remember, because I like couldn't get,
Yeah.
literally couldn't get a mission to work because I couldn't detect them in time and I couldn't
Right.
put together a team in time. Yeah.
So so Caitlin like sits next to me all the time, and I didn't want to teach her how to beat the game on Legend because she was meant to be giving rookie balance feedback and be like new eyes on the game. But
Like
like
watching him play.
yeah, she was watching me play, and so she could pick up pretty quickly on like, oh, you can duo stuff with the specialist and the shinobi,
Yeah.
and then start playing that way, and all of a sudden the game's sort of broken on rookie, which is like the game is
Kind of.
intentionally breakable on rookie because it's meant to be an easy difficulty,
Yeah.
so there's not a whole lot of clamps placed to stop players from just careening off in whatever direction they want to exploit and winning the campaign. And
Yeah.
so,
I mean, to be fair, at some point in vanilla, it basically felt like I couldn't lose, and it was just kind of boring.
yeah,
And there were definitely like I saw you using that strategy, but it didn't always work for me because I would sometimes make horrible mistakes on maps. So
okay, cool. So Caitlin's experience was like not balanced yet, so not very enjoyable, not not very replayable at least. Once you got up to stuff that was new, you were enjoying it, right? But you kept playing
yeah,
Gate Crashers and could only find one strategy that really worked, and that wasn't so much fun.
yeah.
Okay, so that's fair. That's cool. That's too bad. Too bad, long word too. I, meanwhile, have played 1,500 hours of the game
Yeah,
and am still continuing to do so, and I've found it to be extremely replayable. Although of late I've been adding house rules to the game. I'm looking at like balance changes for 1.2 and 1.3 and trying to find ways to tweak down the stuff that's really broken. So like there have been ways that the game has broken, which has made it a little bit less replayable for me. And I would compare that to learning replayability, and I think that Vanilla XCOM 2 suffered from this a huge, huge amount. I feel quite strongly that you could play Vanilla XCOM 2 twice, and it was fun both times, and the third time it was just the most
yeah,
boring thing ever. And the reason is the first time you're learning everything, right? So you have to learn what do mag weapons do exactly. You have to learn what a mimic beacon is. Once you learn what a mimic beacon is, you don't really have to learn very much else. Uh, they've fixed that a little bit since release, but at release, oh my god. Uh, you have to learn like about retaliations, and you learn about faceless. You meet all the new enemies, so there's a huge narrative aspect of Long War 2. And that sort of fits into the learning replayability. As you learn the narrative, it's really fun to learn. And then you've learned the narrative, and the second time through, the narrative sort of encroaches on the gameplay because, like, I don't want to. I don't want to have to sit through the same narrative twice in a row.
yeah.
Like, it has to be a pretty good movie for me to see it twice.
It's a good thing you
You
can
know?
click through the videos.
Well, you can only sort of click through the videos, like Bradford voiceovers
Yeah, yeah. You
explaining
can't
everything to you at the start of the game.
get rid of the voiceovers.
You cannot escape them.
Yeah,
So some of the design decisions in Vanilla XCOM 2 seem to have been based on the idea that this was a game which was about learning replayability. And while they may have wanted it to be replayable in other ways, like certainly the way that maps are designed seems to imply that they want it to be very replayable, the fact that there is that narrative which you can't really avoid, there are unskippable cutscenes, there are voiceovers that you can't make go away, detracts from its replayability in other ways. And it's like if in League of Legends, at the start of every game of League of Legends, some like fairly old guy who was probably drunk came on your screen and you no longer were able to control the screen, and he started explaining your character to you and spent about a minute telling you what all your abilities were.
why is he drunk?
Bradford.
Oh, you okay?
Okay. Apparently, Caitlin doesn't know any of the lore.
I don't know any of that lore. Sorry.
um,
I still have XCOM Enemy Unknown Bradford in my head, the very straight-laced
Yes.
soldier.
Well, yes. Bradford cannot fly the Avenger
Oh, that's
particularly
true.
well, and there are some theories about why that might
Okay.
be having to do with the bar on the Avenger.
Because we do see him in there fairly often, right?
We do.
Yeah.
We do indeed. Um, the bar is called the Gin Clinic, as
Is it?
opposed to the Gene Clinics. Get it?
Oh,
Get it?
I didn't know that.
Well,
Oh,
I
was that okay?
I think that's unofficial lore.
Yeah, I think that's unofficial. Okay.
Um, so, so that's like a thing. Is that this game is presenting you with learning replayability. There's a narrative, which is very key to the game, and the game forces you to engage with that narrative and sit through it over and over again every time you play. And so
Well, but for the first time, it's like really exciting because
it
it's just a
is.
continuation of the other game, and it's all this other stuff that it's like, oh, you weren't actually in the war, you were captured, and
I know that was huge. Like,
right?
and he was a
Yeah.
ghost the entire time. Um, but but the second time through, you can't escape it, and that I
Yeah.
think is a. I don't know if that's like a mismatch of design goals or just a design mistake or a mistaken execution of design of vanilla XCOM 2, but it was there and it was very irritating. And then there was also a limit to learning replayability because stuff was just completely broken in every way in vanilla XCOM 2. And this is true of like every strategy game that comes out from a AAA studio ever. Like until they patch it for at least a year, there's stuff that's completely bonkers, busted, broken.
Yeah.
Civilization 6, like you can sell and then all of a sudden you have 40 horsemen and like it's faster to. I'm not even going to talk about how
Don't do
bad the
that.
balance
Yeah.
was in Civilization 6. I can't go there or I will get upset and start yelling at you. So let's not do that. Long War 2 did a pretty good job of balancing stuff, but even there's such a big game space that like the second that you find out you can beat a 0% supply rate, boom, the game's gone. You've lost it completely. And
Or you've won it completely.
yes, well, you win the campaign, but you
Lose.
lose engagement with the game
Yes.
because there's no longer the pressure. The mechanics which are enjoyable to play in don't work anymore because you just win all the time, no matter what you do, pretty much. But there is some very very strong mechanical replayability in both vanilla and in Long War 2. And so I think the tactical gameplay is just sublimely excellent in both. I love late game Long War 2 tactical. I think that it is so good. Um, Flip side of the coin, there's a cat behind me, and there are lots of stealth missions, just like the cat. Zephyr, I don't think that's yours. I think that's Caitlin's project.
You are so lazy. You're using my. Did you see what he did? He used my drawers as a step ladder.
Oh, he couldn't even jump
He
up
couldn't
on his
even
own.
jump up on the table.
Our cat has been gaining weight, and
We don't know what to do about it.
we don't know what to do. Anyway,
Sorry.
so like flip side of the coin, there's a ton of stealth stuff in Long War 2 right now, and that's not super replayable. And like you can try to make it more replayable by adding perks to other classes to make them good at stealth, or you can try to minimize it a little bit so it's not quite as overwhelming because the missions are fun, I think. Personally, I find them to be fun in moderation. Like one every few hours of gameplay, that's great. It just breaks up the gameplay.
Yeah.
It's an interesting, different experience that you don't get
Yeah.
in
That's what
regular XCOM
Yeah.
tactical combat. And, that's cool, but if there's too much of it, it's killing the game. And if it's giving you too much stuff for winning the strategic layer, then that's killing the game too, because all of a sudden you don't have to do the other missions and you're not getting the mission variety. And the same is true of supply raids as well. There are even specific enemies assigned to supply raids, such that if you play supply raids a lot, you start to just see the same enemies over and over again, even. So you're not even getting to fight the exciting archons and like the mutons and snakes and all of these fun things. You're just fighting pods of 8 advent troopers a whole lot.
So it's not even like it's interesting in the randomness of enemies.
0% supply raids, in my opinion, not super interesting.
Yeah.
Not like fun the first time, fun the second time, okay the third time. I believe in my campaign where I fought 13 0% supply raids from April 15th to June 15th in game, that like I started groaning every time a supply raid came up. I had so retaliations and supply raids have the same image, right? And I'm playing Legend Iron Man, by the way, and I want to win the campaign
Yeah.
because it would be cool to win the campaign twice on Legend Iron Man before anyone else beat it once. Anyway, so I'm in this campaign and a symbol comes up, and if it's a supply raid, I get like 150 supply, 30 Illyrium and alloys. All of my soldiers get a huge amount of experience, and like I've never lost a soldier on a supply raid since like 14 supply raids ago. I lost 2 because they were standing by a truck and it caught on fire and exploded. That's been my experience with 0% supply rates. That's how difficult I find them to be. And so the supply raid graphic comes up, and I'm like, oh. And then I actually click on it, and it's a retaliation. And I was like, yes! Yes! Instead, half of my rebels are going to die in the Haven. I'm going to get very little experience, no resource gain. Oh, thank God, I don't have to play another 0% supply raid. So, there are ways that Long War 2 balance just completely breaks, and that hurts the replayability of the game a lot. And that still has to get synced in. So, a lot of people are running into that, and people who are playing the game a lot and have already finished a campaign or two are running into that. And even like one campaign is a long time. So, if you're exploiting 0% supply raids, just one campaign's long enough to get pretty bored with doing those. But I think that the tactical gameplay is replayable and it'll get there. And you might have to turn voices off at the start of the campaign so Bradford doesn't yell at you. But once you can get through to the tactical gameplay, I think it's very solid. I don't really have any complaints. I know some people don't like the timers, some people don't like some of the classes, but those are minor things in my mind. And they can be modded out or even just INI config edited out if you personally don't like them, and you end up with a pretty good game that's very replayable. You wouldn't do that?
I think if you're complaining about classes, you probably should go look at how other people are using them because you're probably not using them in the most effective way.
Yeah, that's
So,
fair. That's fair. I've found all 8 of the classes to be very useful in
yeah,
different
in different ways.
situations.
I
Personally.
think I think one thing that's really interesting about Long War XCOM 2 and War 2 is like the classes literally have different jobs. Like it's not just like in Long War 1, you just wanted to have one of every class, maybe two of a couple of class on a mission, and that was a good team. But now it's like, okay, well, this is a stealth mission, so I need
Right.
these certain classes are really good, and this is a supply raid or this is a big mission that I need to blow things up, so I need my firepower.
Yeah.
So I think that's actually really interesting. And then if you start losing, uh, if you lose certain bits of certain number of classes, then then you're in trouble because now you don't have people to go on a. I
Yeah.
don't know. That's what I found when I was playing. It was like, oh wait, I don't have anyone to go on this stealthy mission. Like I'm gonna have to
Yep.
send a gunner and a technical. It's like that's not gonna work. So
Yeah, and then
yeah,
you end up with really weird teams on these
yeah,
missions, and that actually creates replayability because you're
yeah,
trying to do them with soldiers you
yeah,
would never have done this with a gunner and a technical
yeah.
before, because who in their right mind would? Um, yeah, I think that a ton of people, when they were playing the start of the game, thought that sharpshooters were terrible because sharpshooters are not good at stealth missions and they're not great at timed missions either. And so,
I think it seems like they should be almost like they
should
should be
they?
able to sit back and like take out people
Okay.
as someone's
Well, I think a
done.
lot of
But
people thought that that was the
yeah,
game because that's
yeah,
sort of more the start of the game is timed guerrilla ops a lot.
yeah,
And
small
it
squads.
was really
Yeah.
funny to see the complaints about sharpshooter balance just absolutely disappeared as people started to hit the mid game, where there were a ton of troop columns and untimed missions where your sharpshooter just gets up in a sniper nest and kills everything. And all of a sudden everyone was complaining about technicals, which happened to be really, really strong in the early game, but now everyone's in the mid game and technicals start to fall off in the mid game. And that's actually okay. There's
Yeah.
You're allowed to have classes be strong at one point and weak at other points. But people are
It's
stuck in that part of the game, so
yeah.
they're giving the feedback as though that's all there is because they're still playing through on the first time and they don't
Yeah.
quite understand the full big picture yet, because how could they? Which actually brings me to the next point, which is metagame replayability for Long War 2. Now, I really enjoyed analyzing Long War 1, and I have enjoyed analyzing Long War 2. And I think there's a huge amount of analysis to be done on like the strategic layer, for example. You have to work out how missions spawn and how to control advent movement and things like that. And they're not available to you in game. And so there are like 3 different points to hit here. I can think of 2. I'm sure I'll think of the third by the time I'm done talking. Uh, One, people are expecting, because it's XCOM and this is how XCOM teaches you things, people are expecting to be handed this information probably by Bradford while they were trying to do something else.
Mm-hmm.
They're expecting to be like halfway through a tactical mission, about to take a lethal shot on a snake to get the objective, which is going to expire in 1 turn, and then Bradford takes control of their mouse and starts to talk about Advent troop movement and explains the vigilance mechanic and explains how missions spawn.
That would be good.
And I mean, that would be good. That's how the game has set up. It teaches you things.
Yeah.
That's how people are expecting to learn. Now, modders don't have access to the Bradford voice actor and can't really animate new Bradford voiceovers. So instead of that, they have to teach you stuff in other ways. So we have a ton of information in the commander's archives, but even that stuff had to be written out quickly enough to be translated into 10 different languages, because this game is distributed in 10 different languages. So that stuff is still not like fully up to date. It doesn't explain every little nitty-gritty piece of the game because some of it was still in flux and was getting changed. So
Yeah.
it wasn't really feasible to do that. And so what you're left with is
Not to mention, like, not everyone can take in like a written explanation of something the same way.
Right.
Like, you're not gonna, versus being shown, this is what yellow alert looks like, this is what the movements are gonna look like.
No, absolutely. It's
Yeah.
hard to teach people a game this complicated.
Yeah, especially if you're just writing it out. Yeah.
Yes. No, we've played Britannia with your family at holidays. We know what a 17-page rulebook does to casual gamers.
We only made it like, no, we did
we finished Britannia. We didn't make it very far through Samurai Swords.
Right, we only made it like 2 turns through Samurai
which
Swords.
was long enough for my neighbors to attack me with all of their armies and like kill all of my hope to beat the game, and then Bobby won.
That's my brother.
Still a little bit bitter about. No, it was a lot of fun. So you have a break in how people are learning things. In Vanilla XCOM 2, Bradford explains everything you need to know to you. In Long War 2, well, first off, it's trying to be replayable. So it wouldn't make sense for Bradford to take your cursor and tell you this in every single campaign. That might have helped you the first time through, but by the time that you're playing it the 5th time, hopefully you enjoy the game and want to do that, Bradford's going to be really irritating. He's already really irritating. So it tries to get written out for you, but it's really hard to do that as well. It's hard to give you everything about the game there. And so you end up having to like go into the code or read your INI files or watch YouTube videos. Myself and X-Wins both made tutorial videos aimed at giving people the crucial pieces of information, and I've tried to make YouTube videos going more in deep and stuff. And also I've tried to make YouTube videos which show other people where I'm going and how I'm getting this, because I think that there is metagame replayability in Long War 2 and a game like that. There's a huge amount of analysis you can do, and some of it dead ends pretty quickly because sometimes the strategic layer is not perfect at all. Like you run into a binary logic gate and it turns out that this turns on at strength 4 in a region. And there isn't actually much gameplay anymore. It's like if strength is below 4, I do this. If strength is above 4, I do this other thing. And that decision is actually made for me. And I didn't realize that until I read some code files, and that's sort of irritating. And it's not actually replayable.
Or heard and someone talk about it on a stream or something
Or
too.
heard me
Yeah.
talk about it, or read somebody talking about it on Reddit or something like that,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
But there is also a huge amount of real strategic replayability and real metagame replayability as you learn about it. So you can develop very complicated analysis about how many rebels should be on intel and hiding in different places once you understand the strategic rule set. But it takes a long time to learn it, and that's metagame replayability. And the game has not been designed with the expectation that you ever do that. It's been designed with the expectation that you're capable of beating Legend with some good luck without doing that. If you want to beat Legend as often as possible, like if you want to have a win rate up above 50% on Legend Iron Man, um, you're probably going to want to do some metagame analysis or watch some tutorials or talk to other people about what strategies they're using and what stuff they've learned about how the game works that they can exploit. And I think that that is interesting. I'm not going to say it's like good or bad, it just is what it is.
I think it's really cool that a community has grown up around the strategy game. Around like it's not a multiplayer game where people are coming in and playing with each other.
That's
It's
true.
literally a one player game that people are meta outside of the game talking about it, spending hours or
Right.
hours watching people,
Right, that's a
talk
really good
about it.
point. This is
So
a single player game, and tons of people are like in streams watching other people play it or on Reddit talking to other people about it. They're not sitting at home by themselves playing the game, and they're getting value out of talking to those other people about strategies and about rules that they didn't realize and stuff like that. Now, you can also say like this is lazy game design that should be apparent to the player sitting down on their own, and I don't like I'm not going to say that, but I understand why someone would say that. Because it would be lovely if the game didn't require that. If somebody could just sit down at home and, with absolutely no frustration, learn everything there was to know about the game and work it out all by themselves. And I mean, I played vanilla XCOM 2 and I did it unspoiled. I didn't let anybody in my chat tell me any stuff. I didn't read stuff on the Reddit or anything. I played a completely unspoiled XCOM 2 Legend Iron Man campaign, and it took me like a week to work it out, and I beat it. And I mean, as I said before, after that, there was nothing left to do in the game. So, so I guess the problem with providing it all to you at once in an immaculate way that somehow you can understand on your own without any help is one that's really 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 hard to do. Like
yeah,
that's quite difficult. Um and not really feasible with resources available. And two, um some of the stuff is just not going to be interesting anymore if
yeah. If you just told how it works.
you just told exactly how it works and there's no onus on you to do the discovery. That's sort of the learning replayability coming back. Like once you've discovered it, it's boring again,
Yeah,
and you have a different method of discovery. It's not Bradford telling you anymore. It's like reading a wiki or watching a YouTube tutorial. But I don't know. I'm okay with where it ended up. I wish that the logic gates didn't exist. I wish that when you put in this time, what you were rewarded with was complicated decisions, and you were never ending up finding out, oh, this is exactly how this works, and there isn't actually much for me to think about when I play the campaign.
yeah,
So I hate the logic gates, but not everything is logic gated. And I know people are very confused about vigilance, and it's like a hidden mechanic and they don't understand it. And vigilance has logic gates on it, but I want to point out that vigilance is intentionally not public information. You're not exactly meant to know what vigilance is in a region, and so if you know that there's a logic gate on something where like it can only spawn with at least 4 vigilance in a region, or it stops spawning when there's 12 vigilance in a region, that doesn't actually kill your strategic layer if you don't know exactly what vigilance is. Because it could be 10 still, it could be 14 now, and you've been doing the wrong thing for the last 2 weeks as it's built up. You don't exactly know. So, truly hidden information, not hidden public information, can do a little bit of work to like make sure that there's still a strategy game going on, even though some logic gates are very strict and binary. Um, Hidden public information. That's what I would call the thing that learning replayability games are relying on. Hidden public information. And so I'm gonna hit like one other thing about. Let's talk about hidden public information a little bit, and then we can wind it up. I think. I want to give you. So hidden public information is like when there's something that you can know but the game won't tell it to you. You like have to work it out on your own. So an example that I talk about all the time in tactical is if you can see an enemy at the start of your turn and then you move your soldier and can't see it anymore, the game should just show you like the shadow of the enemy on the tile it's on, because you know where it
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
right? Like the game is placing a burden on you to like write it down or remember it in your head or something, and it's just not really a reasonable burden to place on the player. You're like, that's not compelling gameplay. You have to remember where the other pieces are. The game should be good enough that they can just tell you the public information that's available to you, and then you enjoy playing it. That's my opinion. And there are games which really heavily rely on hidden public information to try to repair the fact that there isn't actually much gameplay going on. And I don't think those games are very good. I wouldn't say that in general XCOM 2 or Long War 2 are like that, but there are games which really, really do a lot of that, and I'm not a fan. But I want to talk about one way that the tech tree sort of uses hidden public information. And I want to like point out one way that it could be done differently, which I think would be really, really awesome. And okay, let's start in Civilization. A lot of people who play Firaxis games probably play Civilization, and in Civilization, you open the tech tree and you can see exactly what the tech tree is. You can see how long it takes to research stuff. You can see what the prerequisites to get to it are. You can see what it gives you and what the stats of the things that it gives you are. Everything's right there in front of you, and it's still a learning replayability thing because you can't like think that far ahead and work out exactly how you're going to maneuver through it. So you have to learn what the best ways are to do it. But at least the public information isn't hidden from you. In XCOM 2, the tech tree is hidden from you. And I just absolutely loathe that. Like, the first week that I was playing the game, I didn't know where the tech tree led. I was having to guess. And so that can actually be compelling gameplay. Is the thing that I'm going to eventually get to. For the first time. It's like a choose your own adventure book. It's really fun not knowing exactly where things will go when you like can draw like intuitions about where they might go by reading the stuff. Like I can think, oh, modular weapons, this probably leads to some sort of better guns. And then research the gun techs and get more guns for my soldiers. But I don't know exactly how long it's going to take. I don't know exactly how good they're going to be or anything, and the game doesn't let me see. So that's hidden public information, because the second time I play it, it's going to be exactly the same, and I can find it out and sculpt a strategy around it. And something that relying on hidden public information does, and is a game like this, is that the second time through can't be balanced the same as the first time through. And one of our like learning mechanisms in Long War 2 is like play the game on rookie first, or play the game on veteran first, and then move up to higher difficulties. And that's one way to teach people the stuff, but it's not a great way to do it. It's like sort of the best that we can do. It would be cool if you could just sit down and play Legend and have all the stuff arrayed out in front of you to make the decisions, and lose because you weren't good at making the decisions yet, not because you didn't know everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then sit down and play another Legend campaign, and now you're slightly better at making the decisions, but at least like the game is still the same for you. It's not like there's information that you didn't know before, which now you do know. Um, so you could actually do that in XCOM 2. You could actually have a tech tree that was hidden and generated somewhat randomly for every campaign. And you could do stuff like different techs gave you a certain prototype, and whatever the prototype is, that lowers research time for a certain following technology. Like when you research hybrid materials, maybe it gives you a nanoscale vest, which I believe is what it gives you right now, and that causes combat armor to be a little bit cheaper to research. Or maybe it gives you like a prototype laser weapon, because like while you're researching hybrid materials, something that would make laser weapons work sort of flew out of a scientist's mind, and all of a sudden laser weapons are cheaper to research, and your campaign is different because of that, and you're
Yeah.
making dynamic strategic decisions based on how the tech tree is evolving, and you can't see in advance what techs will be available to discover next. I think if you look at Stellaris, which did a lot of things wrong in my opinion, one thing that it did really well is that the tech tree is dynamic, and every game you can research different stuff, and as you're playing along you don't know exactly what's going to become available to you next, so you you don't have everything
Hmm.
worked out right at the start. Now there's still like hidden public information in how was the tech tree generated, and that gets into like metagame replayability, and you have to go work that out for yourself if you really want to optimize everything, and I don't really like that, but that's something that sort of happens with hidden tech trees, which are randomly generated. But whatever. I think that that would be really cool, and that would be a cool way to approach the tech tree in XCOM 2. And I also think that it would be cool to just have the tech tree displayed to you all the time, so you could just play through. But I don't think it would be quite as cool. I don't think that it is quite as much
Yeah.
what Long War 2 is about. Just having a tech tree which is always the same and always displayed to you. I And then you could also do the thing which we currently do, which is the first time through, you don't know what the tech tree is. And then the second time through, you know exactly what it is. And if you go on Wikipedia, you can find out exactly what it is. And I think that that way is pretty dumb. I think that that's definitely the worst of the three options. So I just wanted to break those apart and point out there is this third way that it can be done, because I think that everybody can sort of see, okay, this way where I can't see what texts are happening next the first time I play unless I go look somewhere else is pretty dumb. I think that most people feel that way, except for the like truly narrative driven players who want to discover stuff and don't care about replayability at all, and those are not really the market for Long War 2. It's meant
Yeah.
to be about replayability.
Yeah.
So if those are the players that we're appealing to, that's awesome that we're appealing to them, but we probably made a mistake somewhere in design, right? Um, and yeah, I think that a lot of people just they leave that behind. They forget that there was this intention ever for the tech tree to be sort of unknown and something that you discovered as the campaign evolved, because they didn't ever actually experience that. They like went on Reddit and read what text you're
Yeah.
meant to discover and then did it. Like, it wasn't executed well at all. So they forget that, and they just want the tech tree presented to them exactly how it is. And I just wanted to point out there is this third type of option, which doesn't have doesn't have to be all about learning replayability, and actually is mechanical replayability, and that's to have the tech tree different each campaign and generate in a slightly new and interesting way for you to try to navigate dynamically and adjust your strategy around. I've never, I have actually never heard anyone suggest that as a solution in Long War 2, and I find that sort of fascinating because so many other things about XCOM are like procedurally generated and requiring you to dynamically adjust your strategy.
Yeah.
And why isn't the tech tree? I don't get it. So anyway, I'll leave you guys with that. I would love to hear what you think about the idea of a dynamic tech tree. And I really enjoyed your feedback on what sorts of podcasts Caitlin and I could do next.
I feel like I had a lot more to say about on the first one. Like,
Maybe Caitlin will do one next time. and I will be the one
Impromptu.
who listens. We could do a knitting podcast.
Yes. There we
You
go.
guys want to hear a knitting podcast from Caitlin? Let us know.
I could go step by step through the sectopod plushie.
Sectoid plushie.
Oh,
You should make a sectopod plushie. That would be pretty cool. All right. Anyway, thank you for tuning in, guys. I have been Stephen Jonas Flavel.
I have been Caitlin Atmofish McDonald.
And we were on the Pavonis Interactive Balance and Feedback and QA, whatever it's called.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.